The antique grandfather clock in our living room struck midnight, casting long, rhythmic shadows across the hardwood floor on the exact eve of our 5th wedding anniversary. I was sitting up in bed, looking through my smartphone to check the nursery camera monitor app, ensuring that our 4-year-old son, Lily, was sleeping soundly after a long day of playing. But what appeared on the glowing screen made my breathing stop instantly and frozen horror surged through my veins. On the grain-textured green night vision video feed, my husband, Thomas, wasn't asleep beside me. He was kneeling right next to our son's wooden crib, his broad shoulders shaking violently as tears streamed down his pale face. He was holding the baby's tiny blanket, whispering with a voice cracked with heavy despair, "I am so incredibly sorry, buddy. I should have never brought you to this house. I should have never let her think you belong here. My name is Elena. I am a 32-year-old corporate banking executive managing ultra-high net worth premium assets in a quiet, wealthy New England coastal suburb. For 5 beautiful, uninterrupted years, I genuinely believed that I had achieved the absolute epitome of the modern American dream. I had built a thriving, lucrative career, owned a stunning historical colonial-style mansion surrounded by manicured lawns, and most importantly, possessed what everyone considered an incredibly loving, attentive, and fiercely protective family. My daily routine was precise, my professional life flawless, and my personal life seemed to be an unshakable fortress of happiness and financial security built upon years of mutual trust and shared ambitions. My husband, Thomas, is a brilliant and highly respected independent architect whose custom luxury home designs are sought after across the entire state. To the outside world, Thomas is a deeply private, soft-spoken man who often spends long, solitary nights working inside his customized home studio, meticulously drafting blueprints under the warm glow of a designer desk lamp. Our entire social circle constantly envies our relationship, frequently labeling him as the ultimate devoted, modern husband who willingly stepped back from corporate life to support my highly demanding banking career, always cooking gourmet dinners and managing our home whenever I had to travel for business. Then there is Lily, our beautiful, angelic 4-year-old boy who brought infinite light back into my life after the immense personal tragedies I endured in my early 20s. He has Thomas's deep, expressive dark eyes and a laugh that can instantly dissolve the heaviest corporate stress. Every single morning before heading out to my bank office, watching Thomas and Lily play together on the lush green grass of our sunlit backyard made me feel like the luckiest, most blessed woman alive. I truly believed that nothing in this world could ever pierce through the perfect bubble of security we had so carefully crafted together. The morning immediately following that terrifying night vision discovery, I rushed to check the digital storage logs of the nursery camera system, my hands shaking as I booted up the admin console. My blood ran completely cold. The entire video footage from midnight to 1 a.m. had been completely and permanently erased from the local cloud backup. I dug deeper into the system's security logs, and my heart dropped when I discovered an encrypted entry. The deletion was executed via a manual security override command sent directly from Thomas's personal iPad at exactly 12:15 a.m. that very night. When I confronted Thomas over breakfast, his face remained perfectly calm, an incredibly soft, reassuring smile instantly appearing on his lips. He poured me a fresh cup of organic coffee, completely unbothered, and claimed that I must be severely hallucinating or experiencing a vivid nightmare due to the immense pressure of my upcoming multi-million-dollar banking audit. He calmly explained that the nursery camera simply suffered from a routine regional network glitch, and that he had used his iPad merely to reboot the router after noticing the connection drop, denying ever entering Lily's room. But my deep maternal intuition absolutely refused to stay silent. Later that rainy afternoon, while performing a routine organization of the laundry room, I felt a heavy, strangely shaped metallic object hidden deep inside the inner lining of Thomas's favorite heavy winter trench coat. I reached my hand into the torn fabric and pulled out an old, intricate brass skeleton key attached to a tiny, weathered leather tag. Stamped clearly onto the surface of the leather were precise geographic coordinates alongside a string of faded, handwritten numbers that looked like a specific access code. Determined to uncover the dark truth behind the erased logs and the hidden key, I waited until Thomas left our house later that week for a supposed late-night emergency client consultation. As soon as his car pulled out of the driveway, I activated a private GPS tracking application linked directly to our shared luxury vehicle's internal security account. Instead of heading toward the bright lights of the downtown business district where his office was located, his car began moving rapidly in the opposite direction, venturing deep into the isolated, heavily fog-shrouded regional pine forests. I cautiously followed the live GPS tracker for over 40 minutes until it led me to a completely secluded, decaying private medical facility hidden far out in the dense countryside. The massive brick building looked practically abandoned, its Gothic walls heavily covered in overgrown ivy and surrounded by a rusty chain-link fence. The entire property was completely dark, save for a single corner window on the isolated third floor that cast an unsettling, dim yellow glow into the pitch-black forest night, looking like a beacon of dark secrets. The very moment I stepped out of my vehicle into the freezing night air, my smartphone suddenly buzzed violently in my palm, breaking the dead silence of the woods. The screen displayed a completely restricted private number. When I pressed answer with a trembling finger, the voice of my wealthy mother-in-law, Madeline, filled the receiver, her tone completely frantic, breathless, and stripped of her usual aristocratic composure. "Elena, listen to me very carefully. You need to leave that place immediately. Do not trust Thomas. Whatever you do, do not dig into his past." Before I could utter a single question, the phone line went completely dead. I tried calling her back repeatedly, but the automated operator informed me that the number had been completely disconnected from the network. This sudden, terrified warning from a woman who had always been incredibly cold, distant, and elitist toward me sent icy shivers straight down my spine, confirming that whatever Thomas was hiding inside that facility was a massive, dangerous family secret. Realizing I was completely out of my depth and trapped in a maze of deception, I secretly hired a high-end private investigator named Robert who specialized in corporate espionage and high-profile domestic surveillance. I handed him the precise geographic coordinates from the brass key tag. 2 days later, Robert called me into his dim, low-rent downtown office, his face incredibly pale and stressed, surrounded by old tape recorders, stacked manila folders, and piles of confidential public records. Robert slowly slid a thick, unmarked manila envelope across the desk toward me, refusing to look me directly in the eyes. Inside were high-resolution surveillance photographs of Thomas entering that exact secluded medical facility under the cover of darkness, carrying a heavy black duffel bag. But it was the financial audit documents underneath the photos that made my breath catch, official records showing massive, unexplained cash withdrawals totaling over $300,000 from our joint savings account over the past year. The most deeply disturbing photograph was a crystal-clear long-lens shot of Thomas sitting inside the facility's third-floor room. He was sitting directly next to a frail, elderly woman resting in an advanced medical bed. When I looked closer at her face through a magnifying glass, my hands began to shake so violently that I dropped the photograph onto the floor. Despite her advanced age and sickly appearance, she looked exactly like my biological mother. But seeing my mother alive was completely and utterly impossible. My mother had tragically perished in a horrific, highly publicized house fire exactly 10 years ago, long before I ever met Thomas in Boston. I had identified the remains and buried her myself in our family plot. How could this dying woman hidden across the state possess the exact same facial structure, the same distinctive birthmark near her ear, and the identical scar on her jawline? That evening, Thomas returned home acting completely normal, kissing my cheek and asking about my day as if nothing was wrong. Unable to contain the burning rage, confusion, and absolute betrayal twisting inside my chest any longer, I slammed the entire stack of surveillance photographs and bank withdrawal records onto the dining table right in front of him, demanding an immediate, unedited explanation of his lies. For the very first time in our 5 years of marriage, Thomas's calm, charming facade shattered completely. His eyes turned incredibly dark, cold, and malicious. He slammed his fist onto the marble table with terrifying force, shouting at me to mind my own business and stop spying on his life, before grabbing his car keys, slamming the front door behind him, and disappearing back into the rainy night, leaving me entirely alone. Left completely alone in the echoing, silent house, a sudden heavy thud coming from the second floor startled me. I crept up the grand staircase, my heart pounding like a bass drum in my chest, realizing someone else might be inside our home. I carefully reached the end of the hallway where Thomas's locked private home architecture studio was located, only to find the heavy oak door jammed wide open, its high-security lock completely splintered and broken into pieces. I stepped inside the completely trashed studio. Blueprints were ripped apart and scattered everywhere, and desk drawers were pulled out and emptied onto the floor. Near his main drafting desk, a hidden floorboard had been forcibly pried open with a crowbar. The intricate brass key I had found earlier perfectly matched a small vintage metal lockbox hidden inside the floor opening, which now stood completely empty. Someone had stolen whatever crucial evidence was kept inside. The next morning, determined to end the web of lies once and for all, I drove directly back to the private medical facility and forced my way past the security desk into the third-floor room. The elderly woman was awake, breathing heavily with the help of an oxygen mask. When her eyes locked onto mine, tears immediately filled her wrinkled face, and she whispered a name that wasn't mine, Rebecca. Then, she revealed the ultimate, soul-crushing truth. The frail woman wasn't my biological mother at all. She was actually the mother of Thomas's first secret wife, Rebecca, who had tragically passed away in a mysterious accident 5 years ago. But the real horror struck my soul when she pulled an official document from under her pillow. Lily, the beautiful boy I had raised for 4 years, the child I believed I gave birth to during a heavily medicated, chaotic emergency delivery, was actually Rebecca's biological son. 4 years ago, I had suffered a devastating, near-fatal stillbirth at 7 months in a highly isolated medical center managed by Thomas's family. Thomas, absolutely terrified that the profound grief would completely destroy my already fragile mental health and drive me to suicide, had conspired with his mother Madeline and an unethical doctor to secretly swap my deceased baby with his late wife's newborn child, who was born on the exact same day. I had been living a complete, carefully orchestrated lie for nearly half a decade. The child I loved more than life itself, the boy whose every milestone I celebrated, did not possess a single drop of my blood. Thomas had built our entire marriage on a foundation of grand deception, gaslighting my memories and using me to raise his biological son while keeping me completely oblivious to the tragic loss of my true biological child. But the dark conspiracy went even deeper than a husband's desperate lie. The elderly woman explained that Thomas had been paying her massive amounts of hush money for years to keep the baby swap hidden from me and the authorities. However, her greedy, estranged son had recently discovered the truth, broke into Thomas's home studio to steal the original adoption and medical swap records from the lockbox, and was now planning to destroy our lives. Suddenly, my phone buzzed violently with an incoming text message from a completely unknown burner number. It contained a live, grainy video feed of Lily sleeping peacefully in his bed at home, accompanied by a chilling, heart-stopping ultimatum: bring $500,000 in cash to the abandoned industrial pier by midnight tonight, or the police get the kidnapping files and you will never see the boy again. I immediately called Thomas, throwing away all my personal anger. Realizing our son's life was in grave danger, all our marital conflict dissolved into pure, unified panic. We met at the abandoned, rain-slicked industrial pier at exactly midnight. The freezing coastal wind howled violently as a shadowy figure emerged from the deep darkness of the shipping containers, holding the stolen lockbox documents in his gloved hand. Thomas stepped forward into the rain, holding a heavy duffel bag filled with our cash reserves, his voice cracking with pure desperation. "Take the money, just leave my son alone." But the blackmailer laughed maniacally, raising a weapon into the air. In that split second of absolute chaos, I didn't care about bloodlines or genetic lies. Lily was my son in every way that mattered. I lunged forward, slamming my weight into the blackmailer's arm as Thomas tackled him fiercely to the ground. The sharp wail of police sirens echoed in the distance as the blackmailer was finally subdued and pinned to the wet concrete. The stolen medical records were recovered from his jacket, ensuring the illegal secret would never leak to the public. Sitting in the back of an emergency vehicle, wrapped in a heavy blanket, Thomas broke down completely, weeping into his hands and begging for my forgiveness, offering to pack his bags and sign immediate divorce papers. I looked at his broken figure, then rushed back home to our house. I ran upstairs into Lily's bedroom and pulled him tightly into my arms, weeping silently into his soft hair as he slept. He didn't come from my womb, but he was the boy I comforted through every nightmare, the boy who called me mommy. I chose to protect my son. I wouldn't divorce Thomas immediately for Lily's sake, but our marriage would have to be rebuilt from the cold ashes of absolute truth. 3 months later, an uneasy peace had slowly returned to our household. While organizing the deep, long-forgotten archives of my deceased mother's old storage unit in the countryside, I discovered a dust-covered wooden box hidden behind old furniture. Inside was a personal diary written by my mother 15 years ago. The very last page read, "A young architecture student named Thomas has been following me around. He says he needs to get close to my daughter Elena, no matter the cost." It wasn't a coincidence.